All right, we'll get started.
Okay.
Are you all set?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay. So I mostly wanted to get the ball rolling on this one, so it's like highly draft think, I would think. But I think we could. I mean, I personally like it when we have something to start off collaboration, and this is basically follows what I showed on the last meeting with some demo that I don't actually have available at the moment. But this just shows the spec against what we were discussing. So it has components which are like higher level objects, and we can get a list of all components that we have. So the first kind of issue here that I added the visibility flag in query. Do you see everything fine, or should I make it larger? Actually, I don't know.
I
You're
can
good,
see
Steve?
fine, but yeah.
Okay, good. So for visibility, for now, I just added two types, like public only and all available. In theory, there can be more, and we could have a conversation also. I mean, if this should be a query parameter or it should be manifested in some other way. I think for API, query parameter is okay, because then the actual consumer can sort it out how to present it. Like from the UI, I probably would make like a totally separate section, public versus private. But for API, I think it's okay as a query parameter. Then every component again, in my world, may have branches, which is sort of an optional thing, but it's useful to group releases together. And then either component or branch has releases. So release is like a named version of something, of component. So the key property of release is that it has version. And then release may have one or more artifacts, which for now I only put like UUID and identifier as a schema for artifact. So I feel that artifact is something that would have SBOM potentially attached to it. And then again, this is already thinking what I'm thinking, that on the release level, maybe we want to combine SBOMs for different artifacts if they're present. So that can be an open question. Then there was a request to add on the last meeting, I saw in the notes, to add the life cycle. So I'm not actually sure if I did that correctly, but I took there was this document from OWASP page that I think it's still like work in progress. So I took like a bunch of enums for life cycle there, and I believe I added it to, let's see. So component, yeah, so I added it to component, like most of them are directly applicable to component, and to release as well. I think that kind of makes sense. So basically lifecycle, I added them as an array of events on component or release. So you have all these events that may happen like at different time, and you just add it as an array. And then this, like, basically the maintainer should make sure that, let's say, GA event only happens once, which I think is correct. For release itself, though, I also added like the status build, which is separate, and that's what we're using. So my assumption is when releases in draft, it means we're still working on it. So it's not actually a release, and we may be adding stuff or adding component or like doing something with it. So once it's completed, it's sort of sealed, so no more changes are allowed. An alternative to complete it is rejected if for any reason we decided to like not to proceed with this specific release, maybe move to the next one, or so something happened that failed this release completely. So this is another dimension that we're using, and that I introduced it here. So it's not everything that we use internally, but it mostly kind of sums it up, and I hope this creates some ground to kind of start working on it.
No, thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. So I don't know if you find it okay is to start with, and I know there was some questions yesterday in Slack, and yeah, so I'd be happy to kind of use it again as the starting area and start discussing based on that, or maybe maybe you have other ideas how to initiate this.
Yeah, I think Pavel mentioned something about, or wait, you were saying something, that was you actually saying something about bundles. We can introduce this, and how are the issues that component and bundle are essentially the same? Exactly.
So about bundles, I can tell you, like, again, in in our existing system, bundle API is kind of exists on the same level as component, and it looks pretty much the same, except that for bundles we call branches feature sets, and then bundles are collections of components. So it makes sense for some real life use cases where it's just easier internally in specific organization when people think about their products as bundles, and their components are usually like some of them developed in-house and some outside. But the problem that I mentioned is like essentially bundles, even like structurally, it's absolutely the same as component. So every component can become a bundle, and vice versa. And that's why I don't know if we want, like, because this is supposed to be a like universal API spec. So if we really want to mandate bundles, I'm not sure. So that's an open question.
Out of curiosity, did you let's see, I think Ole has basically deprecated the Google Docs, right? Let's see.
Not sure.
I think he's moved everything into Markdown at this point. Use cases. So in your schema here, can components contain other components or no?
We don't, I mean, they could, but we sort of don't have a field for that at the moment.
Yeah.
And again, the question is, should we represent it here or just rely on SBOM for that?
That is a great question.
Well, unless I'm wrong, in SBOM a component can also be a collection of components.
Yes.
So, for example, in practically when we do releases of a multi-Maven project, we have an SBOM that contains all the artifacts. So that's probably the most referenced SBOM.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a very common scenario in enterprise software where the marketing team basically has a collection of multiple products that they sell pre-configured in a certain way. And to the customer, it's, you know, that one product. But in reality, it's like 5, right? You know, Oracle does this, my own company does this, lots of organizations, enterprise software companies do this.
Is that equivalent to where, for instance, with SonarQube, you've actually got like enterprise and developers and like public versions for the exact same thing, except they're not quite the same thing.
Right, exactly. So there's always a disconnect between, you know, what something is called and even versioned internally versus what the outside world sees. And we care more about the outside world because this is really a last mile effort. You know, doing this internally is easy. Externally is kind of what we're trying to do.
From a point of view of sort of loads of traffic, whatever, is there any value in doing something similar to what I saw was done in another project today, which was endpoint for concise, so that you can actually get sort of summary findings as opposed to getting possibly sort of too much?
Summary finding. Can you elaborate?
Well, I was being obtuse there. What I was referring to was what will become dependency track version 5, where the concise endpoint for, say, a project would give you a simple list of what the projects are with no more details than that. But in certain contexts, that's all you need.
Yeah, we're gonna need that. For example, one of the use cases is, well, given who I'm logged in as, you know, what well, bundles, essentially, what bundles do I have access to that that I can get artifacts for, right? You know, if I've licensed, you know, 10 different products from a software vendor, right, I should be able to query and I don't with components. I know it's just a noun, but I don't know if there's just going if this is going to lead to too much ambiguity or not.
Ambiguity in what way?
What kind of component is this? You know, is this a open source component? Is this a commercial component that I've licensed?
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's actually a good point.
All the NTIA documentation, you know, for SBOM and now all the CISA documentation plus CycloneDX refers to everything as a component, which is good, but also when you're looking at the consumption lens might be confusing.
Yeah, no, that's pretty compelling to me. Yeah, I kind of agree. Yeah, then we just introduce another thing that would have like with the bundles.
I think we call them collections or bundles or something. I can't remember. I mean, we're open
Yeah.
to nouns, right? We just, I think,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have to choose our nouns carefully. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I'll just placeholder it here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So based on that, I'm looking at like the requirements doc that we have in Markdown in the repo. And let's see, artifact discovery based on T collections, collection management, artifact retrieval, artifact publishing and versioning. Repository discovery. Can I see the artifacts thing again? Where'd you have artifacts?
Yes, artifacts are not very
Just out of
elaborate.
curiosity.
I like for now I only put UUID and identifier, but
Sure.
yeah, this requires somewhere like here there should be SBOM references essentially.
Yeah, right. We can have,
in some way. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Probably an array, or I don't know. That's actually maybe, yeah. Hope you should have a better idea. But I think just in case an array, but I don't know if it's actually one article. Like yeah, potentially it's actually at least 2 SBOMs per artifact, right? So it's like SBOM and VEX could be, and there could be multiple VEXes. So it should be an array, I think, right?
Yeah, it's going to be an array because if you, IoT products, for example, I mean, you always get an H-bomb and an S-bomb.
Yes.
And for complex, connected devices, you could potentially have multiple software stacks on a single device. So like MRI machines typically have like three things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so definitely an array. I'm glad I'm not the only one who develops specifications, in real time.
It's just easier for me this way.
What's that?
No, I'm just saying it's easier for me this way than
Yeah, me too.
writing down and then trying to.
Should it be called S-bomb or a more generic X-bomb?
Yeah, just call it bomb or something.
Bomb. Okay.
Yeah.
No S. We need date. Sorry.
It should be generic because won't some companies only have stuff for hardware? It might not have a single SBOM inside.
Yeah, and typically your hardware folks, because they've been doing this for going on 50 years now, they have really mature processes in place, where, common scenario, right? You might have a single model number for a given device, but the supplier might be out of a certain part. So you substitute, right? Same model number device, but you can create revisions on the fly based on different suppliers' parts. Very common scenario. So they have all of this very complex product lifecycle stuff going on with their bombs, and they are, for the most part anyway, very adamant that the software kind of stays out, because we are, by comparison, a lot less mature than what they're doing in the hardware space.
But would they still be able to use T?
Yeah. And I think I've talked with I need to re-engage the conversation, but I've talked with a couple of providers of PLM solutions, like product lifecycle management, that do different types of bombs, engineering bombs, manufacturing bombs, etc. And I think once we actually have this, API kind of in place, I would like to re-engage in that conversation and start getting some feedback from that side of the house as well. Because for the most part, everybody on this call right now is from the software world, which is great. But I think getting some perspectives of hardware and other kinds of things would be equally as important.
But it does emphasize what was just mentioned a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
To refer to bomb rather than SBOM, at least in a sort of generic, like top level thing.
Right.
Because you don't want to actually make people think that it's restricted in any way when it's not. It does actually apply to them.
Right. He's just drafting specifications in real time. Love it.
Should the bomb component be restricted to CycloneDX documents?
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, yeah, it's actually a good point. Yeah. So bomb format.
Well, CycloneDX documents can do a lot of things.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's all correct, but these are just a bunch of properties I put in BOM, like serial number version. I think that's you. Although serial number is not mandatory, right? I think no.
Yeah.
Which yeah, okay, but still, we may have it optional, maybe.
I think maybe an identifier. What is the identifier for the bomb? And in CycloneDX speak, that's going to be like the bomb link, right? That's going to be that. And then I think SPDX has the concept of a document namespace, I think. I'm not exactly sure. But I think it's a single field versus CycloneDX, which has two fields that make up the identifier.
A single field that combines like version and serial number?
Yeah, we have a registered, CycloneDX has a registered URN.
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be basically the identifier there.
Okay.
That's close enough. I kind of get the point.
Yeah.
But that still makes sense, right? Or you want to change it?
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me.
Okay. Okay, then download links. So this essentially should be just collection of URIs, I think, and maybe we mention whether it would just display on screen. I remember that what you said last time, or it would download it as a file.
Right.
Potentially. So I'll need to expand this. And then bomb type, like meaning HBOM, SBOM. Do we make it an enum or keep it open?
That's a good question. I mean, And this goes back to more ideology kind of discussions, right? The US government decided that they're going to restrict the types of things that they talk about. And so they came up with the term S-bomb, which, I don't agree with, because the hardware folks, they don't call them H-bombs, right? They just call them bombs. But I do think that we need to, I do think that, in my opinion, we should probably stick with bomb. And if there's multiple bombs, we can let the consumer kind of figure it out. But I do think that we need to distinguish other things other than bombs. For example, you might have two different bombs, right? You might have an S bomb and you might have an H bomb. The consumer would essentially need to figure it out. We could theoretically have a text field to kind of help with that, thing, to give the consumer some hints. But we were going to support other types of artifacts, like attestations, for example, and CLE as an artifact, and VEX and VDR as an artifact.
Okay.
Um,
But that's fine, because these are like S-bomb, like actually bombs. I mean, we're now talking not about artifacts in general, but about bombs within artifacts. So we could have, in theory, other type or things that
Oh,
are
I see what
not,
you're saying.
not
Right, yeah.
bombs.
Right. Okay. All right. Right.
Like for me, as again, I don't have much expertise in this, but for me as like a user, having this as an enum would make sense, even if we miss something. At least we don't expect any weirdness in here. Because if we don't constrain this, and people can start inventing things, and it would be hard, again, I mean, for end users to understand what they mean at some points. I mean, sometimes it's hard for me already to, again, since I'm not an expert, for all of it. So let me put it as an enum, and then, yeah. And we'll get like other stuff later. So this could be S-bomb, H-bomb. You don't consider PEX an S-bomb, right? Or do you?
Well, it depends on the use case, right? You could, for this particular use case, I don't think so. I mean, we've got the concept of just bill of vulnerabilities, right? So just being able to trade vulnerability information between one system to another. But I don't think that use case is going to be applicable here.
Okay.
So yeah, leave that one out.
Okay. What else?
No, VDR or no?
No.
I mean, we don't have to complete everything now.
Yeah.
Right.
Two things. I'm not quite sure. Are you saying that VEX wouldn't be included? Because I thought that an S-bomb might be sort of static for sort of 3 months, like obviously because it's tied to the version. But the VEX might be updated like multiple times a day or even once a week. But the point is, it is updated outside of the cycle of the releases.
That's correct. That's correct. So, it's just not a bomb.
It's not a bomb. But it is an artifact that would be found here.
Yes,
so are we looking at specifically so I had to go AFK there. Are we looking specifically at the part of the definition which refers to the bomb only?
That's correct. And I think what we'll probably, I think what we might end up realizing is that all the things that we have in there for bombs, we're essentially going to have to use for all these other artifact types as well.
Okay, now second question about the life cycle there. Do we need to be sort of explicit about what definition of life cycle we're using? Because I know that the CycloneDX understanding of life cycle or specification of life cycle is not the same as, what is it, Steve? Is it CISA or NIST? I can't remember which one it is.
Well, CISA has this thing called bomb types, which is kind of a messy mix of life cycle and what you can do with a bomb in a given life cycle. So they actually, in their document, they actually state that it's not life cycles, even though it kind of looks like it. But they have this concept of bomb type. But again, CISA is not a standards agency, so they're not chartered to create standards. So we can.
Okay, so given that, how would we make it clear what the definitions of a life cycle so enumeration is? In other words, where somebody can actually go and find out more information.
So what I wrote here is based on some document that I found through OWASP page, which is work in progress. So my assumption here is when this item, but Steve, you probably know this better, is if this work in progress has a chance to be completed before we release like something of teething, then we would just take whatever is in there. That was my kind of hope.
Yeah, we kicked off the work group calls. I think it was like last week or 2 weeks ago, something like that. And yeah, we're just getting started. However, I think we've got a number of, obviously, we got a number of things to kind of think through. I don't believe the writing the specification for CLE is going to be overly difficult. I think the initial part is just getting over all of the potential use cases that CLE is going to support. That's the hard part. But once we get over that hump, I think the actual specification will be fairly quick, actually. I do plan to take CLE to ECMA as potentially another task group. So this effort, for example, the Transparency Exchange API, this is going to be rolled up into task group 1 under TC54. So whatever work the community does here will be seen at that level. I plan within the next meeting or two, TC54 meeting or two, to propose that we stand up a task group for CLE as well. So just kind of let everyone know where we're currently at with CLE. We've got a lot of work to do there. If you'd like to get involved in that, let me know. I'll forward the invite to you. But yeah, hopefully we can have it done before this work is done.
And did you say that the meetings already started?
Yes.
Oh dear. Yeah, I did see the meeting go out. It was also published in the CLE Slack channel.
Yes.
So I just slipped up there, not joining the first meeting.
Yeah, and it's on the OWASP software supply chain shared calendar as well, that shared Google calendar.
Thanks.
Hey, Mitch, welcome to the group. First timer. So do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, really appreciate the invite, Steve. And I think it's funny, you probably guessed by now, I am Australian, so I'm glad it's called Project Koala. I am a long-time developer, short-time salesperson, and short-time AppSec, I'd say enthusiast. Seeing AppSec from the other side, right, being on the development side, on the build side versus the break side, so to speak, it's just opened my eyes up to a whole new world of things we need to accommodate for, things that secure code that I copied from Stack Overflow that's now in production in multiple places from throughout my career. Probably not the best bet. But now coming into it eyes wide open and seeing the problem for what it is, and how do we attest to things like, S-bombs being a drop in the bucket, and how do we attest to provenance? How do we put the SSL certificate on the supply chain like what we did with a web server, right? How do we reinstill trust and faith and a protected environment? And I that might seem lofty, fair, it is. But fighter for good, and I think what you're doing here, as far as I understand it, is very important and is really paving the way. So happy to be on board, happy to learn, and hopefully I can contribute something helpful.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Mitch.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, as I was mentioning, we'll probably realize that, within artifacts, we've got bombs, which have an identifier, version, download links, a type, format, date. We're probably going to realize that, CLE and VEXs and VDRs and CDXAs probably have the same fields, would be my guess. So does that answer your question, Mark? I mean, this is just bombs, and then we'll have a thing for like VEXs, for example.
Sorry, I was on mute. My reply was simply indeed.
Okay, awesome.
Is it possible that someone produces an S-bomb and H-bomb in one CycloneDX document? So technically they can do it.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the whole bomb types thing, but unfortunately, the entire industry is doing that, and that's what people search on. But like my own employer's S-bomb actually includes services too. What is that called? I have no idea. Right? It's a bomb that has software and services. It doesn't necessarily fit into a neat little thing, right? It's not a SAS bomb. It's not an S bomb. It's this hybrid thing. And I think, as more and more tools become available, this is going to be very, very common, right? Like C-bomb is now a thing now. There's no reason why all of your cryptographic assets also can't be in your S-bomb, right? So what is that called? I have no idea.
Yeah, you can have one document that documents all, including since this
Right.
can be versioned VDRs, VEXs, and
Right. So maybe instead of like bomb type, maybe we have perhaps an enumeration of the types of inventory that it contains. That might be helpful. Right? If I have a bomb, which we're looking at, right? We're looking at a single bomb here. And maybe instead of a bomb type, maybe we have a breakdown of what kind of inventory is in there, software and services, for example, or software and hardware, right? And then you have maybe another bomb. Well, in this case, maybe we have one that has software and services, and then we have another bomb that has just an inventory of hardware.
Do you have tooling that can take bomb and just return list, or do you think it's simple?
What's that?
No, I mean on the practical sense, given a bomb, is it easy to obtain a list of this inventory types per bomb?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah, I
you
could
have-
do a very quick query in JQ, for example, or
Uh-huh.
XPath for XML. It'd be very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, delete this completely, or
No. I think maybe just change that to an array of
oh,
possible inventory types, right?
Okay.
No,
I understand.
Yeah, that might be useful. That would maybe then give the hints necessary for the consumer to get the bomb that they are most interested in.
Don't remember how to write this in line.
So how in that would you encapsulate the idea that they're interested in the C-bomb, but they don't see a C-bomb? And actually the reason for that is because the C-bomb has been merged with what other people might think of as just being an S-bomb.
Correct. So you might have a bomb that contains an inventory type of both software and cryptography, for example.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, that would be
Right?
awesome. Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember how to.
Feels like we're pair programming.
Yeah. No, I just don't remember how to write it without doing all
Items. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
And this.
I haven't had enough caffeine this morning, so don't ask me yet.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll try. Actually, I think it worked. Yeah, it worked. Cool. Okay, so now we just do what, like software?
Software, hardware, cryptography.
Hardware.
Yeah. Services.
Service.
So help me understand there, Steve, around the service side of things.
Help you understand the service side?
No, I'm not sure what you mean by the service side of things. I understand the software, hardware, cryptography, understood, snapshot of those.
Mhm.
And then service, obviously you're not meaning the people and service involved. You're talking a web
That's a
service.
great point. Right. Yeah. Well, any kind of remotely accessible thing that you can interact with programmatically, I guess, right? It could be, a microservice. It could be a GPS, right? These are all services, but certainly not like I'm going to fix this thing.
Yeah. Because I think you
that,
touched on a very interesting thing here, right? Is because we're trying to quantify the variability of, for example, third-party modules, the variability in hardware, the variability because it changes over time. And you kind of hit a nerve there with service because I've been thinking about lately developers, right? If you were to take version 1 of Mitch's code versus version 2 of Mitch's code versus version 3 of Mitch's code, you would have substantially different risk appetites and substantially different risk factors, and potentially even a track record of which you could quantify my third-party risk associated with things that I've put out to market. So, I mean, I'm taking you sideways a little bit here, but something interesting to think about is the service side. Is, you look at XZ and you see that you had the same technologies, the same platforms, and developers with a certain behavior, right? Which was consistent until it wasn't. So I don't know what I'm saying here, whether it's an SBOM around developer behaviors or behaviors security, but I just wanted to throw it out there in case it was of interest. Sorry for taking you sideways.
No. Oh, because we are, I mean, it's not quite exactly what you're talking about, but we are introducing the concept of blueprints in CycloneDX 1.7, and blueprints is this overarching thing that includes it includes architectural bill of materials. So what's the architecture of whatever it is that I'm trying to describe? And then we have this concept of BOB, or bill of behaviors. What does the application do and how does it do it? What is both the expected and the observed behaviors? So not exactly what you're
No, I like that. That's
trying
great. Yeah.
but we should capture that as a type because that's important, as well as attestations, right?
Mm,
CDXA is a thing now. So if I want to attest to SSDF, for example, that would be another type of, well, I guess it wouldn't be a bomb though, would it? Attestation would not be a bomb.
I like Bob.
We're talking
I like Bob's cool. Bill of
Bob.
behavior. I really like that.
We'll have to
Hey,
create a
Bob.
logo. Do you know an artist?
I love that. Yeah.
Bill of behaviors. Yes.
Well, that's what it is. That's what SSDF is, really, right? You got monitors and controls and SLSA, and they are bills of behavior. Yeah, really, that's an interesting term.
Yeah. Yeah, we might have to pull attestation out because I don't think that's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless. Okay, no, never mind.
No, we definitely need some other type here.
Yeah, we need something other than a bomb, right? Um well, we talked about VDRs and VEXs, we talked about attestations, we talked about blueprints. I don't know what to call those.
No, but access I think would may still go here because vulnerabilities can be in bomb, right? I mean, I remember they can.
It can be, but if you look at like I know we're ignoring CSAF because they have different distribution requirements, but if you look at like OpenVex, right, that's not a bomb format.
Okay, I'll just forward something like that.
Could always put it under the label of provenance, keeps it open enough. I mean, your artifacts are going to be
more. Okay, so I'll leave it. Yeah, I'll leave it for next time.
Okay. All right.
But
does everybody find this like a good way to work?
I do.
Yeah, I miss it actually.
As long as I can actually sort of keep in mind what actual section we're looking at in any given moment.
Yeah, it's easier for me for sure. But
yeah. No, this approach is good for me as well. So as long as we don't get too caught up in the specification part, and we always refer back to the use cases and requirements, I think this would probably be a really good working model for us going forward. So thank you, Pavel, for kind of putting this together and for sharing your screen with us.
Yeah, no problem. Sounds good. Yeah, no, it's easy for me as well, but yeah, I'm glad that you can.
So one question about right down at the bottom of the screen there, we've got the software, hardware, etc. Do you is it actually inappropriate at this point to add things which are currently sort of experimental, like as an example, your blueprint?
Right, but that's not
what I'm thinking about. So that the version 1 of the T sort of API will actually be able to then encompass blueprints when blueprints arrive, because you know that they're going to arrive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes back to, choosing the right nouns.
Yes.
And, you know, if I look at, if I look at the code response over here and I see bombs and I see inventory types, right? That's kind of where we are with our own mental model as a group. But what we might end up doing, just, because, I'm thinking, a few things in advance here, like when we get to blueprints and some of these other types, well, maybe we rename bombs to something else. And then maybe we rename inventory types to something else so we can actually capture those something else's, right? Because everything else, the identifiers, the download links, the formats, everything is going to be basically the same. So do we want like an optimized schema, or do we want, more of a verbose schema? And I don't have an opinion either way, right? But I think one thing that would be interesting is how this could potentially look on an embedded device that doesn't have a lot of physical RAM. So that's one thing that we might want to keep in consideration as well.
You mean the client for the API, or like
No, like like I'm thinking of like a medical device, for example, that's serving the bomb that it has via an embedded API.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yes, but I think it doesn't need to go through all the hoops though. It would probably be scoped to a single release or something, and that should be very contained to me.
Hmm.
But hold on, isn't this where you would actually talk to your device? It can give you a bomb, but it could also at least fetch the VEX for you and deliver it up if it's internet connected. Or would you expect that information to be in the bomb, or what? In other words, as a sort of as a reference, or what? So what I'm trying to ask here, Steve, is what do you imagine that this client on the embedded client would be doing?
Well, the
About-
client could be anything, right? I mean, that could be my web browser, or some enterprise like dependency track, whatever.
No, I'm thinking about the example of a device which is like low RAM and needs to be able to accomplish everything it needs to do, but shouldn't be doing more than it needs because of the environmental constraints.
Right. Yeah. So you'd want to have a very concise JSON representation, right? Because every byte might matter. It was kind of my point. So, again, we might want to think about, once we get to blueprints and something else, do we want to replicate that whole section of bombs for other kinds of artifacts like blueprints and attestations and other things? Or do we want to see if somehow we can come up with a solution that can encapsulate all the things? I don't know the answer to that, but
So the options I see, like here, we cannot like type. I mean, I'm not doing it now, but I'll just to make the point. So, and it would be like, I don't know,
right.
Vex. So that's one possibility. Another crazier possibility is treat bombs as artifacts and then create like nested artifacts.
I'm cringing. I don't know.
But does this raise the possibility of like having a kind of reduced bomb, which is basically intended for this kind of situation, where, just as an example, instead of having like 4 different sort of SHAs for every single component, it's got one. It's got the one that's needed.
Reduced bomb thing is very actually on the agenda, at least for me, because I had a client recently who needed only, and I think probably you encounter it as well, only like top level dependencies, and that's it.
Well, I mean, the idea of a sort of simplified bomb would be your NTIA minimum elements bomb. So that's, but what I'm thinking about here is, well, what happens if you had an NTIA minimum elements bomb and reduced it still further by, to use my example, only presenting one SDK per component?
Yeah, right. Legal teams be lawyering, for example. I mean, I've heard of companies that will have multiple versions of an SBOM for the same product. Like one that they might give like to the US government that contains all their third-party components, and another one that only includes like the open source components and excludes like the commercial components, for example, because of whatever reasons. You make up a really good point. Do we want to we could talk next time. We've got 1 minute left, but we could talk maybe next time about how this could potentially fit into the SCVS bomb maturity model, and if that model might help us here. I don't know the answer to that, but it might be worth discussing, because that is unfortunately going to be a common scenario where you have multiple SBOMs published and there's differences between them because the audience is different for the exact same product. All right. Well, with that, what's that?
That's what I was about to say. Well, I'm quite happy with myself for throwing that little hand grenade in conversation.
Well, at least we can start thinking about it now, right? It's better that we start thinking about it now than like at the 11th hour. All right, with that, I'll let everyone go. Have a great rest of your day. The recording will be published up on YouTube later today. So thanks all.
That was great. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.